What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here today to talk a little bit about Beckett. Been watching a lot of prices recently, and there's been some chatter on social about how the prices of BGS 9.5s are kind of slipping a little bit on the secondary market to even a wider gap than it was previously, or the gap is slowly starting to widen, I guess, and just Beckett's general overall perception in the resale side of things. And I have an idea. That I just want to throw out into the ether and get some feedback on that if on how to fix Beckett, if you will. Up on the screen here, I have a perfect example. We talked about this. I posted about this. PSA 10 green Tatum Prism sold the other day for $27.50. A BGS 9.5 with extremely strong subgrades, 3 9.5s and a 10, went for $1,500. Now, the point of this is not to, why did the PSA 10 go for this and the Beckett go for this or whatever. I think Beckett has a 9.5 problem. We've talked about this 1,000 times before. People do not want a 10 as a main grade. And I even, when I had Scott on, the chief visionary officer of Beckett, I asked, 2 questions, the 9.5 thing and the subgrades. Are they a blessing or a curse? Same with the BGS 9.5. And I think that they are. I think they are a double-edged sword. The big thing that Beckett is known for, besides the case, people like the heaviness of the case in a lot of cases. But the biggest thing that they are known for is the subgrades. They are the one of the major 4 grading companies that give you a clue on why a card graded the way that it did. Now, they've had 9.5 as their gem mint grade forever. 20, 30 years, however long it's been like that forever. However, I think they need to change the grading scale. I see this time and time again in social media. The messaging around the 9.5 being their main grade, like, people just don't understand that these grading companies have different scales and that the number presented on a label does not mean the same thing. The amount of times I've had to go round and round with people of, well, that's a 9.5, that's not a 10. Of course it sells for half as much. Like, I've literally heard that statement before. Hello, 9.5 is their gem mint grade. I understand the subgrades will make it vary a little bit, but generally speaking, a BGS 9.5, a PSA 10, an SGC 10, a CSG 10, those are all gem mint cards based off of the standards laid out by each individual company. And then the subgrades, as much as it's a blessing because they are the one company that gives transparency with, oh, this card had a 9 corner, so it got a 9. You could kind of see, okay, cool, like that's where they didn't like something about this card, or a 9 surface, or an 8.5, whatever. They present with us some limited information on the reason why a card graded the way that it did. And once again, that is a strength, in my opinion. The problem with subgrades is that then it becomes a point of frustration / negotiation. You have discussions about this with various people. You go to trade or buy or sell for a Beckett card, or you try to trade away a Beckett card or sell a Beckett card, and it's a point of contention. Oh, we have 3 9.5s and a 9, so like the last BGS 9.5 did 1,500, but it had better subgrades, so like let's value this one at like 1,300, and it's just all this extra work involved because they have that extra level of transparency. So on one hand, it's a blessing. You get to grade with them. You get to find out the way that your card graded the way that you did, or it did. On the flip side, it's a little bit of a curse. I think 2 things need to happen. These are the 2 things that I would do. And once again, I'm Monday morning quarterbacking here. I don't know what the lifts would be. I don't know how difficult this would be to implement, the costs, all that stuff. the marketing behind it. And I could just be an idiot. This could just be my dumbass idea that everyone else thinks is stupid. That's part of the reason why I'm making the video, just to kind of see what you all think about this. I would change the grading scale. I would go in line with everybody else. I would make 10 the primary gem mint grade. I would have a 9. If you want to have a 9.5, that's fine, but it's no longer gem mint. I would have a single 10 grade. It would be black label. If the card is perfect, it gets a black label. If it's a gem mint card, it gets a 10, and then go from there. Now, does that leave BGS pristine kind of hanging in the wind? Yes, it does. Sorry. You're going to piss some people off no matter what you do, but I think that they need to do something because they keep losing more and more market share, in my opinion. So they need to do something radical to kind of shake the snow globe up, if you will. Because at this point, I don't know that it's going to hurt that much. I would go to a 10-point main grade. And like I said, have the black label as the main one. Here's the big one. This is the big one. I would get rid of subgrades and replace it with grader's notes. Subgrades clearly cause points of contention, like we talked about. You know, when you're negotiating on a card, different BGS 9.5s, whether it's a min gem, a true gem plus, will sell for slightly different amounts. It all just causes secondary market confusion. Remove it from the board. Just remove it from the board. Submit a card to grade. It gets a 10, it gets a 9, it gets a 9.5, whatever it is, it gets a black label. But when you scan a QR code on the back, you know, obviously upgraded label, upgraded slab. I'm not even going to get into the weeds on that, but, you know, shake some things up with the slab and the label. Get some scanning features on there. When I submit my card to Beckett, it's a gem mint card. It comes back a 10, it comes back a 9.5, whatever. I scan that. There is no subgrades. And just replace subgrades full on with grader's notes. Grader's notes is something I've been banging the drum on forever in the sports card world. I don't understand why we don't have it from any one of the big 4 grading companies. Just give us true grader's notes. So now you're already known as the grading company with subgrades that is giving us more information about the card on why it graded than anybody else. Just take it a step further. If you think the subgrades are a boat anchor around your ankle, cut the chain, but then go to the next best thing. You eliminate the subgrades, which causes points of friction, but you're even more transparent than you were before on the reason a card graded the way that it did, because you're going to present us with actual grader's notes. So instead of saying a card got 3 9.5s and a 9 on the corner, and it's a gem mint card, it would be a gem mint card, and maybe there's a grader note that says something like very slight, whatever, in the bottom left-hand corner. Or maybe the card grades a 9.5 instead of a gem mint card, near mint, whatever you want to call it, on the grading scale. Why did it get a 9.5 instead of a 10? If a 10 is their gem mint grade and now a 9.5, basically like the SGC and CSG scale. You know, if a card gets a 10, maybe you really don't need a note attached to it. If it gets a 9.5, maybe you tell us why. You know, if a min gem card comes in, why instead of a 9 corner, hey, the back left corner has got, you know, it's a little white showing. Like that knocked it down from a 10 to a 9.5. Just tell us that instead of having the subgrades, and then switch the grading scale up. Those are the 2 changes that I would make. Obviously, like the slab needs a little bit of an update. The label needs a little bit of an update. Get a little bit more modern. Nothing radical. I wouldn't change the size. I like how a BGS slab feels in the hand, but the label could use a little bit of updating. It needs a QR code on there to scan to take you to the pop report. Needs some better security features. You know, all that stuff would go hand in hand with this. But to me, the 2 big things I would do to shake it up would be move to basically an SGC/CSG grading scale, where a 10 is your primary grade. You have a 9.5, and then you also have a black label for your high end. Black label wouldn't go anywhere. But then get rid of subgrades and replace it with grader's notes. You're still the most transparent company on the planet then in regards to why a card graded the way that it did of the big 4. And you eliminate the friction points around subgrades. So what am I missing here? I'm for the people that really, you know, that like using Beckett or don't use Beckett if they move to something like this? Would that be something that enticed you? I'm genuinely curious for your thoughts and comments on this down below. I think the bigger thing is shaking up the grading scale. But I do think if you're going to make a bunch of changes, you might as well just do that too. I think they have to get away from 9.5 as the primary grade. It's clear people do not want 9.5 as the main gem mint grade. Now, maybe you could just get rid of subgrades and do graders notes instead of subgrades and keep everything the same. I think that would be a half measure, but that alone might be worth doing. We could discuss that in the comments down below. That might be one way to take it. Just leave everything else the same. Don't change the grading scale. BGS 9.5 is still gem mint. There's still a 10 pristine. There's still a black label, but subgrades are gone. And in place of subgrades, it's just full on a graders notes system. I still really think graders notes, whoever figures it out first of the big ones, will have a relatively decent advantage over all the other ones. There's no reason why I am paying, if you're setting, especially on the high end stuff, if you're setting a high end card off the PSA and you're paying $3,000 or whatever the hell it costs to get a high end card graded, there should be a mechanism that if it comes back a 9, that they denote on the pop report when you scan that QR code and it takes you to that card's page, that it tells you why it graded the way that it did. It got a 9 because of this. Like I said, Beckett subgrades kind of do that, but let's just take it a step further. Just go the whole way and then really set yourself apart. And like I said, the grading scale thing, if it was me, I think I would look at making 10 the main grade. But I can hear arguments on both sides of that because of the amount of cards that they have in market at the current grading scale. So I get it if you want to push back on that side of things. But what do you think about subgrades going away and just getting replaced with graders notes? And then, like I said, we could argue about the grading scale thing. I could definitely see both sides of that for sure. But those are my thoughts. Little slab update, which they're already working on that. That's nothing new. But do they need to shift the grading scale from a 9.5 as your gem mint grade to a 10, and then shuffle the deck on that, and then get rid of subgrades, but replace them with graders notes? If you're gonna get rid of subgrades, you have to replace it with graders notes. You can't just get rid of subgrades and do nothing, like be less transparent, because then you're just like everybody else. It's the one thing that sets you apart. Double down on it, in my opinion. Maybe it doesn't work. I don't know. But I think at this point, it's at least worth discussing. So, curious for your thoughts and comments on this one down below. That's all I have for you guys and girls. Catch you on the next one. Peace.